before healing begins. There is silence, a space between who you show the world and who you really are inside. We all carry something, pain we don't speak of, feelings we push aside, truths we're afraid to face. But today, you don't have to hide. This is your invitation to pause, to breathe, to return. Welcome to the weight we carry, not a place to fix yourself, but a space to finally feel and remember who you've always been. The heaviest burdens are often the ones no one sees. There's a kind of weight we carry that doesn't show. It doesn't bruise the skin. It doesn't leave visible marks. It doesn't scream for help, but it's there quietly, constantly. A presence we wake up with, a shadow we fall asleep beside. It's the sigh we don't realize we're holding, the tightness in our chest we've learned to call normal. It's the weight of everything unspoken, the thoughts we push aside because they're too much, the emotions we bury because we were taught to be strong, the memories we've silenced because no one was there to listen, or worse, because someone once told us it wasn't a big deal. This kind of weight doesn't ask for permission. It settles in slowly, almost invisibly. At first, it feels like tiredness, then like irritability, then like a quiet sadness you can't explain, until one day you realize you're not just carrying stress, you're carrying the accumulated pain of 1,000 unshed tears, 1,000 unspoken disappointments, 1,000 moments you minimized, brushed off, or swallowed whole, and no one knows. Because from the outside, you're still functioning, you're still showing up, still smiling, still doing great, but inside, you're exhausted, not just physically, but soul deep. You've been carrying more than you were ever meant to carry, and maybe you don't even remember what it's like to walk through the world without that invisible weight pressing down on your back. That's what no one tells you about emotional weight. The longer you carry it, the more it feels like part of you. You forget that peace is even possible. You forget that rest is allowed. You forget that you're not supposed to feel this heavy all the time. We grow up learning how to survive. We master it. We become experts at holding ourselves together when everything inside is falling apart. We learn to smile through pain, to push through burnout, to say, "I'm fine," when we're anything but. And in doing so, we lose touch with the truth that we were never meant to carry it all alone, that we were never supposed to hold our breath for this long. That silence, when it becomes a way of life, turns into a prison. But it's hard, isn't it, to say out loud what hurts, to admit that you're tired, to say, "I can't do this anymore," in a world that rewards you for enduring. It's hard to speak when you're afraid of being judged, when vulnerability has been met with rejection before, when the last time you opened up, someone told you to get over it, so instead, you carry it, silently, stoically, heroically. But let me say this, gently, honestly. Just because you've gotten used to the weight doesn't mean you should keep carrying it. You deserve a life that doesn't feel like survival. You deserve mornings where you wake up light. You deserve relationships where you don't have to hide your truth to be loved. And I know, maybe you don't even know how to put the weight down anymore. Maybe you've carried it for so long that the idea of not carrying it feels unsafe, like if you stopped holding it all together, everything would fall apart. But healing doesn't begin with fixing. It begins with noticing what hurts, noticing what you've silenced, noticing the weight you've called normal for far too long. So take a breath here with me, not to push through, but to pause, to soften, to let your body feel what it's been holding back, that ache in your chest. It's real. That tiredness in your bones, valid. That longing for ease, deserved. You don't have to justify your pain. You don't need to earn your rest. You are allowed to feel heavy, and you are allowed to set the weight down, even if just for a moment. Maybe this moment, right now, let it be the first time in a long time where you don't rush past the feeling, where you don't minimize it, where you don't pretend it's fine. Just breathe. Feel the weight. Acknowledge it, not to wallow, but to honor. Because what you've carried matters, and more importantly, you matter. This isn't the part of the story where everything gets fixed. This is the part where you learn that the weight isn't who you are, it's something you've held. But it's not your identity. It's not your fault. It's not forever, and the beautiful, radical truth is this: you get to choose what you carry next. The words you didn't say, the feelings you buried, and why they still live inside you. There are things we never said. Words that sat heavy in our throats, moments that passed too fast, too fragile, and we swallowed the truth instead of speaking it. Maybe we told ourselves it wasn't the right time. Or maybe we were afraid of what would happen if we said what we really felt. What if it changed everything? What if we weren't believed? What if it made someone uncomfortable, or worse, made us seem weak? So we stayed silent. We nodded when we wanted to scream. We smiled when we were breaking inside. We walked away when all we wanted was to be held, and over time, those unsaid things didn't disappear. They buried themselves deep in our bodies, in our chest, in our gut, in our shoulders, in the parts of us that carry memory, even when our mind tries to forget. And now we feel it in the heaviness that lingers even on good days, in the tension that never quite leaves, in the sadness that shows up without warning, like a quiet visitor from the past. Because here's what no one teaches us: unspoken pain doesn't vanish. It waits, patiently, until we are ready or brave enough to face it. I remember moments in my life when I should have spoken, moments when my truth pressed against my ribs, begging to be let out. But I didn't. I was scared of being rejected, of making things worse, of the aftermath of honesty. So I said nothing. And in that nothing, I lost a little piece of myself, because every time we silence ourselves, we send a message to our inner world. What I feel doesn't matter. My truth is too much. It's safer to hide. And slowly, we start living smaller. We edit ourselves. We become skilled at saying what's expected. We learn to read the room and shrink accordingly. We call it being polite, being easygoing, being chill, but often it's just fear dressed up in friendliness. And yet, underneath the silence, something remains. The longing to be fully seen, to be heard, not just with ears, but with heart. To say the thing we've rehearsed in our head 1,000 times, and finally feel safe enough to speak it. We all carry those unsaid things. Maybe for you, it's, "I wish you had stayed. You hurt me more than I ever admitted. I was scared every day, but I kept pretending I wasn't. I'm not okay, and I haven't been for a long time. I needed you, and you weren't there." These truths don't go away just because we hide them. They wait, not to haunt us, but to be honored. Because your story deserves to be told, even if it's just to yourself. Healing begins when we tell the truth, when we stop minimizing our pain, when we stop calling trauma just a bad memory, when we stop pretending that being quiet is the same as being strong. Sometimes speaking your truth means writing it down, alone, in a journal no one will ever read. Sometimes it means whispering it to the wind during a walk, or crying it out during a long drive home. Sometimes it means finding someone, one person who won't look away when you open your heart. And sometimes it just means saying it to yourself. This happened. It mattered. I'm allowed to feel all of it. Because here's the most important thing I can tell you. Your truth does not make you unlovable. It makes you human. What you didn't say back, then you can still honor now. It's never too late to speak with compassion to the parts of you that went quiet, to tell them, I hear you now. I'm listening. You don't have to hide anymore, and no speaking your truth won't undo the past, but it will release the pressure that's been building inside you for far too long. It will create space for breath, for softness, for freedom, because silence may have once protected you, but it is no longer serving you. You don't need to carry the unsaid forever. You can let it rise. You can let it move. You can let it go slowly, gently, truthfully, and in doing so, you begin to return to yourself. We hold it together for so long that we forget we're allowed to fall apart. There's a fear many of us carry, a quiet, persistent fear that hums beneath our daily routines. It's not fear of failure, not fear of rejection, not even fear of loss. It's the fear of falling apart. We carry it in our breath, in our shoulders, in the way we clench our jaw through conversations, in the way we laugh a little too quickly to cover the crack in our voice. Because somewhere along the way, we learned that breaking down is dangerous, that it's messy, inconvenient, weak, and so we avoid it at all costs. We keep going. We hold it in. We push through even when the weight is unbearable, even when everything inside us is begging for rest, even when the tears are pressing behind our eyes like a rising tide. We say, not now. I can't afford to fall apart right now, but here's the truth, and it might feel uncomfortable to hear. You are allowed to fall apart. You are allowed to collapse, to cry, to rage, to say, this is too much, and I don't know how to carry it anymore. That's not failure. That's not weakness. That's humanity. We were not built to be unbreakable. We were built to feel, to bend, to crack, to bleed, to heal, and yet, so many of us live as if we're not allowed to shatter, even in private. We live behind masks of strength. We pretend we're fine. We say yes when we want to scream no. We comfort others while ignoring our own aching heart. Because somewhere, we've internalized the lie that breaking down means never getting back up again. But have you ever watched someone weep freely, not dramatically, but honestly? Have you ever seen the way their body softens afterward? The way their breath slows, their face unclenches, their shoulders finally drop? That's not collapse. That's release. That's a body finally letting go of the weight it's held for far too long. And yes, it can feel terrifying the moment you let yourself really feel all that's been suppressed. It might feel like drowning, like losing control, like chaos. But that storm, it's not there to destroy you. It's there to clear the space where healing can begin. Because healing doesn't happen in clenched fists and stiff postures. It happens in the surrender, in the softness, in the fall. I remember the first time I let myself truly fall apart. It wasn't graceful. There were no candles, no soft music, just a quiet room, a pile of laundry I hadn't folded in days, and a moment when my heart said, I can't do this anymore, and I didn't. I sank to the floor, and I cried. Not for 5 minutes, not for one night, for days. Off and on, in waves. And when the waves passed, I wasn't empty, I was clearer. Something inside me had made space for breath, for truth, for me. You see, the fear of falling apart is often the fear that no one will catch you, that if you let go, no one will hold you, that you'll disappear into the darkness and never return. But sometimes the one who needs to catch you is you. You finally allowing your body to grieve. You finally holding your inner child in their sorrow. You finally saying, "You don't have to be strong right now. I've got you." Because you do. You've always had yourself. Even when you felt abandoned, even when no one else showed up, you were there, breathing, caring, carrying. But now, maybe it's time to stop carrying, to let something drop, to fall not into destruction, but into truth. Because falling apart isn't the end. It's the beginning of becoming whole. So if you're afraid to fall, I understand. It's not easy. It goes against everything we've been taught about strength. But I promise you, there is beauty in the break. There is light in the letting go. There is wisdom in the unraveling. And when you rise because you'll rise softer, wiser, more honest, more you. When slowing down feels like failure and stopping feels impossible. There's an invisible pressure many of us live with. You won't always hear it. You won't always see it. But you feel it every single day. It's the pressure to keep going, to keep moving, to keep functioning, to keep showing up, no matter how exhausted you feel inside. It whispers things like, "You don't have time to fall apart. People are counting on you. You should be over this by now. Other people have it worse. Just keep going." So you do. You go to work. You reply to texts. You force a smile. You scroll, pretend, distract. You push your feelings to the side. You save your sadness for when you're alone, but by then, you're too tired to feel anything at all. You fall into bed like a machine shutting down, not a person resting. And in the morning, you wake up and do it again. Because that's what we've been taught, right? To push through, to hustle, to keep going no matter the cost. And the cost? It's heavy. It's the constant anxiety humming beneath your skin, the irritability you can't explain, the way your body aches even when nothing is wrong, the moments when joy feels distant, no matter what's happening around you. That's what happens when we treat ourselves like machines, when we believe that rest must be earned, that slowing down is lazy, that being okay is the only acceptable state of being. But here's the truth. You are not a machine. You are a living, breathing, feeling being. And you are allowed to pause, to rest, to say, "I can't keep going like this." It doesn't mean you're giving up. It doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're finally listening to the parts of you that have been whispering, begging, aching for your attention. Because beneath the pressure to keep going is a deeper truth. You are tired, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, energetically. You are tired of pretending, tired of pushing, tired of holding it all together when it feels like everything is falling apart. But here's what I want you to know gently, lovingly. You don't have to keep going like this. You're allowed to pause the performance. You're allowed to take a step back. You're allowed to not have all the answers. Rest is not a weakness. It is a radical, rebellious act in a world that worships productivity. It is saying, my well-being matters more than keeping up appearances. My soul matters more than my schedule. My healing matters more than my hustle. And yes, it's scary to stop. Because when we stop, the silence catches up. The emotions we've outrun begin to surface. The questions we've avoided start asking for our attention. But that's where healing begins. Not in the constant motion, but in the stillness. In the moment, you finally let yourself feel everything you've been running from. So if you're feeling like you should keep going, but your heart is begging you to slow down, listen to your heart. If you feel guilty for resting, ask yourself, where did I learn that I have to earn my worth through exhaustion? Who benefits when I ignore my own needs? What if the bravest thing I can do right now is stop? Because stopping even just for a moment doesn't mean the world will collapse. It means you're finally honoring the world inside you. And when you return to the path, you'll do so from a place of truth, not pressure. From intention, not obligation. From love, not fear. So take the break. Close your eyes. Cancel the plans. Say no. Say, not today. Say, I need rest. And that is enough, because you are enough, even when you are not producing, performing, or progressing. You are worthy of love and compassion, even on the days when all you can do is breathe. So let this be your permission to pause, to feel, to not be okay, to stop. And in that sacred stillness, you may just find the part of you that's been waiting to be heard all along. When your own reflection asks you to remember who you are. There are moments in life that are quiet, almost forgettable, and yet they change something deep inside you. They don't arrive with drama. They don't shout. They don't announce themselves as significant. They come in stillness, in the middle of brushing your teeth, in the pause after a long cry, in the space between waking up and pretending to be okay again. You look in the mirror, and for a brief, flickering second, you don't recognize the person staring back. Not because your face has changed, not because time has altered you physically, but because something in your eyes looks unfamiliar, dimmer, tired, distant. You look at yourself and wonder, where did I go? And it hits you not all at once, but with quiet clarity. You've been gone for a while. Not physically, but emotionally, energetically, soulfully. You've been performing, existing, managing, surviving. But living, that's something you haven't really done in a while. And in that moment, something in you aches. Not with regret, not with shame, but with longing. You miss yourself. You miss your light, your laughter, your softness, the parts of you that weren't afraid to feel big things, to dream out loud, to take up space. But now you feel distant, like you've been on autopilot, like you've become a version of yourself you never consciously chose. And the mirror doesn't lie. It reflects more than your face. It reflects your fatigue, your truth, your absence. And in that brief moment of connection, you have a choice. You can turn away, get on with your day, push the feeling down, say, I'm fine, and carry on. Or you can pause, just for a second longer, long enough to say, I see you. I know you're tired. I haven't checked in for a while, but I'm here now because what we often need most isn't another self-improvement plan, isn't another affirmation to tape to the wall, isn't another checklist to feel better. What we need is to simply come home to ourselves, to look at our reflection with softness, not judgment, to hold eye contact with the soul inside the body, to remember there's someone in there worth loving, worth coming back for. The mirror doesn't need to reflect perfection. It needs to reflect presence. And presence isn't about having it all together. It's about being willing to meet yourself where you are. On the good days, that might mean smiling back. On the hard days, it might mean tearing up and whispering, I know. I know, but either way you show up, you stay with yourself. Because the worst kind of loneliness isn't being without others, it's being disconnected from your own soul. And these mirror moments, they're sacred. They're not breakdowns. They're breakthroughs. They're invitations to return. To say, I may have lost myself for a while, but I'm finding my way back. Not to who I used to be, but to who I really am underneath it all. Because that version of you, the one who still believes in light, who still wants to feel joy, who still hopes, even quietly, that version has never left. They've just been waiting, patiently, kindly, for you to look in the mirror and remember. So next time you catch your own reflection and feel the ache of unfamiliarity, don't run. Don't rush. Stay a moment longer. Lean in. Say hello. And maybe, just maybe, say, I missed you. Because that might be the first step, not toward changing yourself, but toward reclaiming yourself. Sometimes hope doesn't come crashing in. It slips quietly through the smallest cracks. It doesn't happen the way you expect. There's no grand moment, no movie score playing in the background, no magical sunrise that makes everything better. Hope, real hope, doesn't usually arrive with fireworks. It comes like a whisper, a pause, a breath you didn't realize you were holding, finally released. It starts small, so small you almost miss it. Maybe it's a morning when you wake up and don't feel the same weight on your chest. Maybe it's a laugh, real, sudden, surprised, escaping your mouth at something silly. Maybe it's the decision to water your plants, to take a walk, to sit in silence, not to escape, but to simply be. It's not joy, not yet, but it's something else, something gentler, something like light. And the strange part is, it doesn't make the darkness disappear. It simply begins to exist alongside it. You still feel sadness. You still carry questions. You're still tired, some days more than others. But now, there's also this new thing, this soft, quiet hum that says, maybe. Things can shift. Maybe. I won't always feel like this. Maybe. I'm not broken after all. And that, maybe. That's the beginning of believing that healing isn't a myth, that your story doesn't end in numbness, that there's something ahead of you, something unknown, yes, but not necessarily frightening, maybe even something beautiful. But don't misunderstand. This crack of light doesn't erase what came before. It doesn't fix what hurt you. It doesn't ask you to forget the pain or pretend it didn't matter. What it does is remind you that you're still here, still breathing, still capable of change, still worthy of more. And sometimes that's all you need to take one more step. Because after days, weeks, maybe even years of walking in emotional fog, you forget that light exists. You forget what warmth feels like. You forget that healing isn't always visible from the outside, but deeply alive within. So when the first crack of light appears, you don't always trust it. You might question it. You might think, is this real or just temporary? Am I just fooling myself? But here's the thing, even if it's fleeting, it's real. And real things, no matter how small, are worth holding on to. Because that tiny shift you felt, that one morning when you didn't dread the day, that 1 hour when the sadness loosened its grip, that one conversation where you told a bit more truth than usual, those are signs, not of perfection, not of resolution, but of movement, of becoming, of opening, of remembering. You are allowed to build your healing on small foundations, tiny victories, quiet awareness. You don't have to leap. You don't have to roar back into life. You don't have to be better in any way that makes someone else comfortable. You just have to notice the light and let it in. Because from that small crack, a doorway begins to form. A possibility. You may still be afraid, still tender, still uncertain of what comes next. But something inside you is changing. Not quickly, not loudly, but truthfully. And that truth sounds like, I want to feel again. I want to trust again. I want to live. Not just survive. Even if you don't know how, even if you're still tangled in old stories, the wanting is enough. Because the heart doesn't ask for guarantees. It asks for space, for presence, for permission to crack open just enough to let something in. So when you feel that moment, that breath, that spark, that softness, don't rush past it. Don't label it. Don't demand more from it. Just let it be what it is, light. The first you've seen in a long while. The first that doesn't burn but warms. The first that doesn't blind, but gently reveals what's always been within you. You're not behind. You're not lost. You're not too far gone. You're simply standing in the beginning again. And beginnings are always small, always sacred. So breathe. Let the light come in crack by crack, moment by moment. No rush. You are exactly where you need to be. You are not just surviving. You are allowed to take up space inside your own soul. Healing isn't just about letting go of pain. It's about making space. Space for breath. Space for stillness. Space for truth. After years, maybe decades of shrinking, hiding, adjusting, performing, we forget what it feels like to truly belong inside ourselves. We build our lives around expectations, around approval, around noise. We say yes when we mean no. We bend our boundaries until they no longer exist. We organize our time around what others need and call it being a good person. We fill every silence with screens, every hour with productivity, every emotion with distraction. And somewhere in all of that, we lose the sacred, quiet space inside. That place where we once knew how to hear ourselves. That space where intuition whispered, where dreams grew roots, where presence lived. Instead, we become strangers in our own bodies, roommates in our own minds. Our inner world becomes crowded not with people, but with pressure. So what does it mean to reclaim that space? It doesn't mean quitting your job or running away to a mountain. It doesn't require a big decision, a big move, or a perfect plan. It starts quietly, with choosing yourself again and again in small, radical, honest ways. Like saying, I don't have to answer this message right now. I deserve to rest, even if the dishes aren't done. My worth is not tied to how productive I am today. I am allowed to take up space in this room, in this relationship. In this moment, reclaiming space means returning to your body not as a machine, but as a home. It means learning to notice what thoughts take up the most mental space and whether they even belong to you. What parts of you feel ignored, silenced, or shamed? Where you hold tension that's not yours to carry. It means turning down the noise. Not forever, just long enough to hear what your soul is trying to say. And when you listen, you might be surprised, because often what the soul asks for isn't dramatic. It's not asking for perfection or brilliance or endless output. It's asking for slowness, gentleness, time, truth, breath. It's asking, can you make space for me to exist without being fixed? And when you say yes, when you begin to clear the clutter, something shifts. You start to feel your own presence again. The world doesn't change. The demands don't disappear, but you begin to change. You begin to notice when you're abandoning yourself. You begin to catch the patterns. You begin to realize, I don't want to live from reaction anymore. I want to live from choice. And that's where freedom lives, not in controlling the outside, but in reclaiming the inside. You create rituals, not routines. You turn everyday moments into altars, drinking tea slowly, walking barefoot, breathing deeply, holding your heart with two hands. You become a gentle guardian of your inner space, not protective out of fear, but sacred out of love. Because now you know what it cost you to be disconnected from yourself. Now you know that burnout wasn't just physical, it was spiritual eviction. You were never meant to live outside of yourself for so long. So you build a home again inside, not made of answers, but of questions you're willing to live. Not filled with noise, but with clarity. Not crowded by shoulds, but softened by what is true. This is not selfishness. This is not arrogance. This is belonging. And when you belong to yourself, everything changes. Your relationships soften. Your boundaries become clearer. Your joy feels less performative, more embodied. You stop trying to convince others you're enough, because now you've convinced yourself. So take this chapter slowly, not as a to-do list, not as a fix-it plan, but as an invitation to clear the clutter, to turn inward, to ask yourself with love, not judgment, what would it feel like to come home to me? What would I stop doing if I no longer needed to prove my worth? What would I make space for if I trusted myself to take up that space fully? Because you are worthy of space, of silence, of softness. Not one day, not when you're better. Now, right now, exactly as you are. Before the mind knows how to say it, the body already has. We often think of healing as something that happens in the mind, in words, in thoughts, in therapy rooms and journal pages. But there's another place where healing begins, a place we often forget, ignore, or mistrust: the body. Long before you had language for what you were going through, your body was already speaking, already remembering, already holding. It carried the anxiety in your stomach, the heartbreak in your chest, the unspoken fear in your shoulders, the grief in your throat, the guilt in your spine. Even when you told the world, "I'm fine," your body knew otherwise. It trembled when it shouldn't have. It tensed during small things. It sighed deeply after simple conversations. It stayed awake even when you were exhausted. It numbed itself to get through the day. And you thought it was just stress, just being busy, just getting older. But maybe it was more. Maybe your body was the only part of you that couldn't lie. Because the body doesn't care about performance. It doesn't care if you're supposed to be okay. It doesn't care if you smiled through it. It remembers everything. The trauma, the betrayal, the absence, the moments you held your breath because it didn't feel safe to exhale. And here's the beautiful, painful truth. Your body wasn't trying to betray you. It was trying to protect you. It tightened to shield you. It numbed to help you survive. It shut down because no one taught it how to stay open in pain. So maybe instead of fighting it, you can begin to listen. Not with analysis, not with judgment, but with presence. Ask your body, where does it hurt today? Where am I holding tension that's not mine? What do I need not to function, but to feel? And then listen. Really listen. You might not get words. You might not get clarity, but you'll feel it. In the way your body softens when you let it rest. In the way it trembles when you finally allow the tears to come. In the way it straightens naturally when you speak your truth. Because the body doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be heard. It needs permission to exist beyond duty. It needs kindness, touch, movement that feels like love, not punishment. Maybe that looks like lying on the floor and breathing into your belly, stretching slowly without mirrors without performance. Dancing alone to a song that makes you feel something again. Sitting still, hand on heart, whispering, "You're safe now." The goal isn't to feel good right away. The goal is to feel honest. To bring the body back into the conversation. To ask it not what's wrong, but what it's been trying to say all this time. And as you do, you might discover that fatigue you've been carrying, it's not laziness, it's unprocessed grief. That ache in your lower back, it's not just posture, it's years of self-betrayal. That tightness in your chest, it's not weakness, it's every no you swallowed when you meant yes. Your body is the oldest witness to your life, and it doesn't forget, but it does forgive, especially when you come back with love. So offer your body what it's been waiting for, rest that isn't earned, food that nourishes without shame, touch that asks nothing but presence, breath that doesn't rush to the next thing, and watch what happens. Not instantly, not all at once, but slowly, your body begins to trust you again. It releases, it softens, it comes home. You may cry for no reason. You may sleep more. You may feel things you didn't expect to feel. That's okay. That's healing. Because real healing isn't just cognitive. It's cellular. It's breath by breath, nerve by nerve, memory by memory. And you don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to be with yourself fully. That's how the body speaks. That's how the soul listens. That's how we begin not to escape the pain, but to finally move through it. To stay open in a world that taught you to close, that's power. The world often confuses strength with hardness. We're taught to be tough, to push through, to hide the tears, to hold it together always. Crying is weakness. Vulnerability is dangerous. Softness is naive. And so we adapt. We build armor. We laugh instead of feeling. We intellectualize our emotions instead of allowing them to move through us. We become experts at keeping it all under control. But something happens in that process. We lose touch with the softness inside us, the part that feels deeply, loves openly, trusts instinctively, the part that once believed in wonder, in connection, in being known. And after a while, we start to feel cold, not because we want to, but because it's safer. It protects us from disappointment, from heartbreak, from the risk of being truly seen. But here's what no one tells you. There is immense strength in being soft. Not performative softness, the kind that pleases, submits, or avoids conflict, but real softness. Softness that says, I'm still willing to feel, even when it hurts. I'm still willing to care, even if I've been betrayed. I'm still willing to speak my truth gently, even if my voice shakes. Softness is not weakness. It's not passivity. It's not fragility. It's presence. It's the kind of strength that doesn't need to dominate the room because it knows who it is. It's the courage to say, I don't know, I need help, or this matters to me. It's the resilience to stay open after being wounded. And yes, it's risky. To be soft in a hard world is to go against the current, to choose connection over control, to choose truth over performance, to choose healing over hiding. But the alternative, staying armored, comes at a cost. It costs us intimacy. It costs us joy. It costs us the full experience of being human. Because when you numb pain, you also numb beauty. When you block out disappointment, you block out wonder. When you close yourself off to sadness, you close the door on love too. Softness doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It means walking with integrity, even when others misunderstand you. It means holding boundaries with compassion, not anger. It means being rooted enough in yourself that you can bend without breaking. And it's not easy, especially if life has taught you that emotions get you hurt, that kindness gets taken for granted, that sensitivity is something to outgrow. But here's the truth. Your softness is not the problem. It never was. The world just didn't know how to hold it, so you learned to hide it. But now in this moment, you get to choose differently. You get to reclaim your tenderness. You get to let your heart be felt again. You get to be the version of yourself that feels everything and still stands. Because that is power. Not the kind that crushes. Not the kind that controls. But the kind that whispers, no matter what happened to me, I didn't let it close my heart. I still love. I still hope. I still dream, and that makes me strong beyond measure. So go ahead, be soft. Let the tears come. Let your voice shake. Let yourself care. Even if no one else understands it. Even if you've been told it's foolish. Because one day, you'll look back and realize softness is what saved you. It's what allowed the light back in. It's what kept your soul from hardening beyond recognition. And that softness, that gentle, grounded, fierce softness, that's your superpower. You don't have to be the same person who entered the storm, but you're still whole. You won't always remember the exact moment it happened. There's no specific hour or turning point. No trumpet of triumph, no fireworks. One day, you just realize you feel lighter. Not because everything is perfect. Not because the pain is gone. Not because life suddenly became easy. But because you're no longer carrying what you used to. Somehow, piece by piece, breath by breath, truth by truth, you began to lay it down. The guilt, the old stories, the pressure, the shame, the need to explain your pain, the fear that softness would destroy you. And what you're left with isn't emptiness. It's space. Space to feel, to move, to choose, to rest, to dream again. You look around at the same world, but it doesn't feel the same anymore. Because you are not the same anymore. You've cried in the quiet. You've sat with your shadows. You've let yourself fall and you rose. Not back into who you used to be, but into someone more real. You are not as guarded now. Not as reactive. Not as easily lost in the noise. There's a groundedness in you. A quiet knowing. An unshakable trust that even when life shakes you again, you'll know how to return. Not to the past. Not to perfection. But to yourself. Because that's what healing really is. Not a promise that pain won't revisit, but a deep belief that you will meet it differently when it does. You've learned to breathe through it, to name it, to hold space for it without letting it define you. You've stopped asking, when will this be over? And started asking, what wants to be understood here? What can I release right now? What's worth carrying forward, and what can I leave behind? And slowly, gently, lovingly, you've released. And now, you feel lighter, still full of feeling, still deeply human, but no longer buried, no longer drowning in what you were never meant to hold forever. You've learned to let the story unfold without rushing the ending, to rest even when the to-do list is long, to love without disappearing, to speak up without apology, to hold yourself without waiting for someone else to do it first. You've become someone who honors the in-between, who doesn't need to be all better to feel peace, who trusts that being whole doesn't mean being untouched, it means being true. And the truth is you're still whole, even with the scars, even with the moments you questioned your worth, even with the chapters you wouldn't rewrite, but wouldn't relive either. You are not broken. You are becoming. Every breath you took when it hurt. Every boundary you held when it trembled. Every time you said, "I'm tired," and chose rest over running was a thread in your rebuilding. And now, you carry something new, not the weight of survival, but the wisdom of presence. Not the need to prove, but the permission to be. Not the armor of strength, but the softness of resilience. You still walk through the world with feeling, but you don't drown in it anymore. You still have hard days, but you no longer believe they define you. You still make mistakes, but you meet them with grace. You still long, still ache, still dream, but you do it from a place of wholeness. Because now you know, wholeness was never about fixing what was broken. It was about remembering who you are beneath what hurt you. It was about coming home. So here, you are not as someone who figured it all out, but as someone who stayed, who softened, who listened, who began again. And that is enough. You are lighter now, still whole, still human, still becoming. And the journey doesn't end here. It just begins differently, with more love, more breath, more truth with you. You made it here, not to escape, not to impress, but to come home to yourself. This journey is only beginning, and it doesn't require perfection. Only presence, only honesty, only you. In the stillness, beneath all that you carry, you are still whole. So breathe, let go gently, and when you're ready, we'll walk the rest of the way together.